And one of the chief engineers, who's ex-public school boy, said, I won't try to impersonate his voice, but he said, yes, well, it's very important for the school trunk. When the parents deliver the child with the school trunk, they want to get it in. I did that because we live near Harrow-on-the-Hill School. I pointed out that most parents only use their Rolls-Royce for speech day, and they'd turn up in a rather tatty maxi with the school trunk. This set my career back probably 6 months, but it was a fact. But nevertheless, I wouldn't argue with it.
While we're at the back here, twin exhausts.
Yep.
Were they twin? Were they either side on the previous one? No, they'd gone twin from the number 3. And the nameplate is Silver Spirit. Yeah. But it's actually the 4 IV, but Rolls-Royce wouldn't use that because it meant death or bad news in other languages.
It was considered, I mean, when I was asked to look at an upgraded Corniche, I just said Corniche 2.
So
nameplates are incredibly important, and I would say that the quality of the plating and the enameling on this badging is fantastic, and the attention to detail. I know the guy who did the spacing. I mean, everything is, you can't believe the effort that's gone into getting that right.
Can you remember what fonts?
I've got it somewhere, but I couldn't tell you offhand. It's a known font.
Yeah, you're right though, the spacing is immaculate.
They just kept, I mean, it wasn't just a one-hit go. It was about 3 different pieces of paper would turn up with different spacing.
Yes,
until it's
minute different spacing.
But the quality is phenomenal.
So the first Silver Spirit actually had no name badge on it, did it? I don't think it had.
I don't remember one,
no. So that was the Silver Spirit there.
No, but I mean, one guy in marketing said you don't want badging on a Rolls-Royce. It's like putting Buckingham Palace on a car. A big issue was the fact that marketing and any sensible person wanted the boot shut to go right down here, because if people were trying to get heavy suitcases in, you didn't want them, or if even those at the gardening centre with a bag of whatever don't want to try to lift it over a big high sill. So we had to drive this line down through here. You don't want to have a high boot opening for this sort of car. And this was a way of getting away with it. The potential nightmare, which is why I'm glad I was never a chief engineer, is that there was no guarantee that when you slammed the boot hard, you wouldn't burst all the lamp filaments. And that is
quite possible.
No one knew the answer to that. They thought they wouldn't, but no one knew until the car was finished, really. And we could have rubber mounted them or something, but nevertheless, it was a gamble which paid off.
The other thing I would say there, the boot is full of camera equipment at the moment, but it's beautifully weighted.
Oh yes. Well, there's some very clever springs.
Yes.
There's some very clever springs across the back of the bulkhead. So it's all thought about,
Yeah.
And money has been spent on something that's completely invisible, and most owners wouldn't know.
You just take it for granted that it's so easy to use again and again and again. Same with the bonnet. Just
again to stress the almost religious fervour of Rolls-Royce's attention to detail and jewellery. Although I'd come up with this solution, my boss quite correctly said it lacks a little bit of sparkle. So originally I just had this lensing, and I did this approach, but I told him, I said, I just don't know how you can make it. He said, that's not our problem, it's not your problem. If we want it, engineering will make it. And they did. But I have to say that every time I see this, I feel guilty, because this is almost impossible. It's a solid brass section, drilled and tapped, and then screwed in from the back. It's unbelievably difficult to do and expensive. You know what I'm saying? From an industrial design background, I knew it was a nightmare to make, and I tried to communicate that, but the guy who told me, not your problem, he knew what he was talking about. It wasn't my problem, and you have to do this sort of thing if you want to make a Rolls-Royce.
Yeah.
So I was very impressed by him.
Yeah. No, I only imagine the amount of work they must have had to put into that.
Interesting also was the fact that, talking about flat panels earlier, we were worried about people when they were shutting the boot of Camargue. They tended to shut here, you know, so they were pressing there. Well, we put this handle in and another handle there, but in actual fact, people still use this, and there was enough curvature not to oil can. But yeah, all these things were, you know, people were standing around at viewings trying to think about it, because it's,
in fact, is there almost a slight? No, it's fully. I thought there was a slight curve. The shadows are just so nice.
It's strong enough not to have a problem. I mean, with a car of this vintage, if you like, to me that surface still looks perfect.
Perfect.
You know?
Yeah.
So this bright work is something. I'm actually tempted to get hold of one of these as a spare and put it on the wall at home, because I know that is another work of art.
It is.
It's the art that conceals the art. And as a designer who had good training, I wouldn't have done it. But I knew how to make it look good, but I didn't know how to make
manufacture it. Did they hate you for it, or did they go, "Oh yes"?
Well, but if you talk to anyone about the fact that solid brass that's drilled from the back, then each individually is tapped and a screw put into it, no one will. Yeah. This is easy to take this sort of thing for granted, and most companies wouldn't have bothered at the time, because the car had been in production for a long time. And after all, this car was in production for 18 years, which is more than the Shadow. I mean, it's a long time to be in production. But one of the things which I'd always wanted to do was to do away with the front quarter light. The earlier cars had another bar down here, which to me smacked of the past again.
Definitely old-fashioned.
It was a old-fashioned. But again, the engineers had figured out that you could actually get the glass to there and drop it down, and at the same time, the original cars had a door or wing-mounted mirror.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say it was ugly, but it wasn't pretty. And this was a big improvement, and most cars do this now.
This was more 90s, definitely.
It was a real freshener, and it was just a better solution.